Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to Wonky Wednesday. This week we're going to make a wonky windmill, and this is inspired by a lovely lady who put a Chinese proverb in one of the comments under, I think it was last Monday's video. I'm really sorry I don't remember your name, but the proverb is, when the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. And yeah, it really resonated with me. So I thought, well, let's make a windmill and let's make it wonky style. Because a few weeks ago when we did the cathedral window, I showed you my red and white wall hanging quilt. And in there was a pinwheel or a windmill block. And I talked about it then, and many of you said you'd like to know how to make that. So that's what we're going to do. So what you will need are 8 squares. So you've got 4 background squares, and I've got limited scraps here that are suitable, so I've chosen this one, but I'm going to use it wrong side up because I want it plainer. That's a trick, you know. A few people have said that they've got a lot of print cottons, but often you want a more solid cotton cloth. If you look at the other side, sometimes that works. So these are 2.5 inches ish square. I've just torn them because you're going to lose about ½ inch in seam allowances, and then I'll end up with a 4-inch square block, if that makes sense. So 2.5 less a half is 2, and 2 2s are 4. So that'll make a 4-inch block when you've taken all the seam allowances away. And then you need 4 squares for your windmill, and you want those to be about ½ inch smaller than the background squares. You see mine are not really ½ inch smaller, but we'll manage. So that the points of your windmill don't get cut off when you know, if you turn the edges under or you sew it to something else. So 4 of those ½ inch smaller. I've just got some regular piecing cotton. I've got the blunties because the snippies are downstairs and I was too lazy to go and get them. And I've also got a selection of buttons. I may well need one button. It's quite difficult to get the middle neat enough. So my cure for that is to stitch a button over it. So I've got those standing by if need be, but they're optional. So I'll just put those to one side. And you'll also need some pins, and I've got my applique pins. So that's it, so let's get started. Sorry, that was a lot of words all at once. I think the best way for me is to lay them out. So lay your 4 squares out right side up, bearing in mind I'm using the wrong side as the right side. I hope that's not confusing anybody. So that's not even the same size. We'll manage. It's Wonky Wednesday after all. Right side up, and then your little windmill squares, you want to fold them on the diagonal, like so, and press them with an iron if you're sensible, but if you're me, finger press. Be careful now because that is the bias, and you know, you can stretch it really easily. And when you've done that, you want to fold one point over until the point meets that raw edge there, like that. And then you match these two like that. I hope that's clear. Do you see that? So now I've got a raw edge here and a raw edge here. And I want to match those two to the middle 2 corners of one of my pieces, like that. And then I'm going to get a pin and put a pin in it, just through the folds and through the background. Clear so far. Now I'm going to get another one and fold it on the diagonal again. And finger press it. I'm going to lay it on there with the right angle to the middle, and now I want to bring the top down like that. So I've got this diagonal here and this diagonal here, and then it will carry on like that, going around the 4 sides. I hope that is clear. So here I've got the short raw edge and the long raw edge, and then butted up against that you want the short raw edge and then the long raw edge here. When you've done it, have a good look at it and make sure it looks right before you start sewing, is my advice. So now I'll get the third one, fold it on the diagonal, Now I'll lay it on match the inner corner, matching, and then fold that down towards the middle. So now here again I've got the long raw edge here and the short raw edge here. And so now the diagonal's carrying on. Do you see? Do you see the shape? Do you see? Do you see? I hope you see. And put a pin in that. And then the fourth one on the diagonal, finger press. Match the raw edge corners to the middle two corners of your background square. And now we want this one to come in. No, we don't. We want this one to come down. It's always, see here, you've got the previous one, you've got the long raw edge. That's the edge that you then need to fold on the next one. So you've always got the long raw edge and the short raw edge next to each other. Do you see? And now you see the windmill shape. And put a pin in it. I'm trying to put the pins up a little bit away because we need to sew that in a minute. Now sewing it together, so now you can see the windmill. You see the windmill? I don't know if this in other countries, but I can remember as a child having these little windmills bought for me on the beach. So when you made a sandcastle, you know, you stuck the windmill in. Now you see here where my square wasn't cut very accurately, my point is now awfully close to the edge, but it's Wonky Wednesday. That's why you need these squares to be a little bit smaller. Do you see? So then if you're going to join that to another piece or turn the edge under, just look out for that. Where's my piece in cotton? Here it is. So now I'm going to, now it's basically a 4 patch, and it's got these extra bits pinned on. And we've done 4 patches before. So I leave it laid out, less chance of things going wrong. I put it right sides together. And when you put it right sides together, do you see that fold there and this fold here will kind of nest up against each other. It's really hard to show you because now they're inside. I can do it with an X-ray machine. So if accuracy is important to you, if you get those 2 folds, can you see? Can you see the 2 folds? If you get those nested up together, that's the most accuracy you're going to get. I am going to rely on the button to cover a multitude of sins. So I'm just going to slap them together. I'm going to actually get that pin out that's inside there now. No, I'm going to get this pin because it's handier. And pin them. Now you're sewing through a lot of layers. You need to have really thin cloth. This is just sort of quilter's cotton type cloth. I'm going to get the other pin out, making sure nothing comes undone inside. So the winds of change are blowing and we're making a wonky windmill. And it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, here's my needle and cotton. Right, so now I'm going to stitch that in the region of 1/4 inch. I might have to stab stitch there where it's thick. I'm going to do a back stitch to start because the stitch has to hold quite a lot. And let's see if we can, and I might do the locking back stitch, not because there's going to be any cutting going on, but just because it's having to hold all those layers. So I'm just going to kind of stitch it how it needs to be stitched. How it feels, you know, to hold it all together. It does feel like it needs back stitches, at least that first bit. Of course, when you make this on a sewing machine, the sewing machine takes care of all that, but we're hand stitching, so we have to do what we feel is necessary. I'm going to keep doing back stitches until I come to where I've only got, you know, where I'm past the folds basically, which I now am. Now I can just do regular running stitches, I think. Whoopsie. And then when I get to the end of there, I'm going to do a little couple of back stitches to finish off. And then I'm going to open it up and press that seam as best I can. It's going to be lumpy. These scissors really are blunt. It's going to be lumpy because of all the layers. Now you'll see that you'll see that I haven't caught the point of that. That's not good, Catherine. No matter, it'll get caught when we join it to the next one. You see I didn't catch that point in the seam, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get all upset like I did last week when I did it wrong in inverted commas. I'm just going to stick a pin in it and deal with it afterwards. And this one here is also flying through free. That will also be trapped down when we join the two together. So just look out for that. Make sure you catch your point. Otherwise do what I've done and put a pin in it. So there's one. Let's put that back down in place. Now this one needs to be joined to this one. So I pick them up and put them how they should go. And again, those two diagonal folds will nest together if accuracy is important to you. So I'm pinching them, and then I'm going to get the pin out and pin them together. And do exactly the same thing again. Come here, pin. It's possible that I shifted it when I took the pin out. But hey, it's wonky. We see they're not remotely the same size. I don't know why I suddenly feel this desire for accuracy. If I want to be, you know, sort of self-assessment psychology about it, if you like. Maybe it's because of the changes. I want some structure somewhere. Maybe it's like a security blanket. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to stitch this seam, and this time I'm starting on the outside edge where my things don't match, but I'm not bothering. Obviously, if accuracy is important to you, be more accurate than I am. Sorry, here comes a motorbike. It's mid-afternoon here, so the traffic is worse. I hope it's not annoying. So I'm just doing regular running stitch until I come across to the multiple layers. I'm going to pre-record, so we're now Wednesday. On Saturday I'm going back to France to retrieve my things. If you're regulars, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not, apologies. So I'm going back to get my things, and most importantly, Stella and Fred. So I'm going to pre-record 2 Mondays and a Wednesday. So next Monday, next Wednesday, and the Monday after, because I'll be in France or in transit. So if I'm talking when I'm recording those videos and it's all out of, you know, out of sync and so on, that's why I'm going to pre-record them for you. And then the following Wonky Wednesday, hopefully, fingers crossed, I have got Wi-Fi booked and it should all be working by then. Will be from my new home. So that's not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. I think it's the 10th or 11th of September, somewhere around there. Right, that's got me, whoops, to the middle. I'm going to go through and back a couple of times just to be certain that it's secure. Open it up, see if we've got the points this time. Yes, we have. So now the slightly tricky bit is getting the middle in some region of flat with all the bulk. And what I'll do, I think, is just lay it down like that and just fiddle about with it. Because the thing is, if you try and press it open, because you've got this fold here, do you see here? That's going to happen. But I think that is actually the best thing to do, and then squish that. Can you see what's happening? So this is 4 layers of cloth here in this fold. But if I squash it completely open and let that little triangle form, my thinking is that feeling it between my fingers is as flat as it's going to get. Now if you want to then go and give that a good smash with the iron, you go for it. My issue with that a little bit is that you tend to squash these, make these folds razor sharp, and I like them more roundy, but you know, that's up to you. You can do that. You see my point's well in there, never mind. So that one's as flat as it's getting. Yeah, no, I was thinking I could base that seam down, but I won't, because I don't want to sew through my windmill. So now this one, all we did was pin it. We need to give that a bit of a... I'm going to put a pin down here because this was the one where I missed the point. Missed the point. I'm always missing the point. And do the same thing with it. Open it up. I don't know why I'm trying to do it in mid-air, but apparently that's what I'm doing. Just squish it down as best you can. Just, you know, I go by feel as much as anything. I feel between my fingers and really give it a good squash, and I think that's good enough. So then lay them back how they should be, put them right sides together. Now here, if you want to do the obsessive compulsive pinning to get those two seams in the middle perfectly aligned, you go for it. If you haven't seen that before, that's where you take a pin and you put it through the seam from this side, right through the middle of the seam, so it comes out at the seam, and then you go in through the other seam, and then you leave it hanging on the pin like that, so those 2 points are aligned as perfectly as this little scrappy thing is ever going to be. Make sure that all your points are folded in, and then leaving that pin straight through there like that. Get a second pin and pin it either side, that side, and then same thing here. Make sure your points are folded in and that all your raw edges are in place. Sorry, I seem to be telling you a lot of stuff. I don't think it's as complicated as I'm making out. And you put another pin through there, and then that straight pin can come out. And then I'm going to sew all the way along there. And I've got a knot in my thread. Again with a, you know, 1/4 inch-ish seam. These three-dimensional things are lovely, but inevitably there's the bulk. So that's why I would say use fine cloth. You wouldn't want to use, you know, really thick cotton, or you can imagine if you had 8 layers of really thick cotton, which in the middle is what, 2, 4, yeah, in the middle is what you've got, 10 possibly even, yeah, with the backing. It will be super bulky. So I'm just going to do a running stitch, which is too big, and then I'm going to do back and forward like that. So it's not a true back stitch, sorry, it's grey on neutral. And then make sure the seams are flat, pressed open. And now I think I am going to have to stab stitch. And this is a big wodge in the middle, but I know I've got buttons standing by. Buttons, buttons. Where would we be without buttons? Right, we're getting there. And if I, you know, I said that the first video from my new place will be the 11th of September, I think is the Wednesday. I have a backup plan if I'm unable to, well, I'll be able to make the video if I'm unable to upload it. I have a video already uploaded that I made some time ago that hasn't really fit in anywhere yet, that isn't a Wonky Wednesday, but it'll be something. It'll be something. So if a Wonky Wednesday has to be missed, here comes a siren, apologies. If a Wonky Wednesday has to be missed, there will be a video. So I'll do my best not to miss anything. Right, that's it done. Open it up, and there you see there's a little pinwheel, which is not too bad at all. I can get that pin out now. And I'm going to put it face down for a minute and just have a good old smash at it. Obviously the iron would help, but like I said, I don't really like the look of it with really sharp creases. If you do, then you go for it, you know, it's personal choice as always. I'm just putting things where they feel the most flat, like that, and pushing it down with my fingers. And that's not too bad at all considering the bulk. And if you wanted to do the trick of basting the seams down there, of course you could, but then I would be, if it was me, I'd be careful not to stitch this down, because what I love is that you see this is a little pocket. I think it would be a shame to stitch through it. So I see my middle is not too bad, but I do think I'm going to put a button on just for fun. And the other thing I might do is put it on a backing, which I had standing by. I think I'm going to leave it raw edge, so I'm going to just trim that a little bit. Can I tear that tiny bit, or will it go horribly wrong? No, it won't tear, it's too close to the edge. Just cut it, dear Henry. Whoops. With the blunties. Whoops, go away. And then pick at it to make it look a bit more fluffy. That's better. It'll do pig. There we go. And then I'm going to put some pins. I'm holding it as flat as I can. And I think I'm going to just do some stitching into the background, because that'll make the foreground, which is the windmill itself. Sorry, pinwheel was last week. The pinwheel was last week. This is a windmill. That is not remotely straight or smooth, Catherine. And then when I've done that, I'll put the button in the middle. If I'm doing beads or buttons, I'm sure you know this, I always put them last if possible, because they're very good at snagging your thread if you've got beads or buttons. French knots can be equally tricksy. That's not long enough, but it'll make a start. So I'm just going to invisible base around the edge, and I know it might then pucker in the middle, but I don't mind if it puckers. This is just what I do. And actually now I've got the seam allowance, you see that I've got plenty of room around the edges. You know, if I had wanted to turn those edges under or join it to another block, I was worried it was not small enough, the windmill section. But I've got about 3/4 of an inch there in some places. In other places I've got less. I'll just squish it as I go. And then I'm just thinking, what am I going to do on the background? I'm going to need to get some more grey, because that's not enough. I think I'm going to just do seed stitch actually. Seed stitch is a good texture stitch, I don't really want, you know, I want the windmill to be the star. But I really just want some texture and just to flatten the background so that the windmill pops forward. So I think that's what I'll do. So I'll finish basting it around the edge. I'll go away and do some seed stitching in the background. You don't need to watch me do that, and then I'll come back and put it in my journal. Okay, so I chose some embroidery floss that's roughly the same colour as the cloth, because then it's just texture. Because that's, you know, I just wanted to give the background some texture and just flatten it down. So you see now the background is really flat, my two layers, and the windmill's really three-dimensional with its little pockety pockets. And I put this red corduroy button in the middle, and I'll show you the back. So you see here it's quite puffy, but it doesn't matter, you know, if you were going to put it in a rice bag, sorry, or anything else, and you put the lining in, you know, I think it's fine, and I think it's worth having that bulk for the effect of it. Anyway, let's stop wittering and put it in the journal, which is getting nice and chunky. So there's the pinwheel from last week. So you see this, we called this a pinwheel and I called this a windmill. Obviously those terms are maybe interchangeable, but they're quite different. Similar design, but quite a different effect. So this one's going on the paper page. I'm going to turn it that way. And yeah, so the proverb, just to remind you, is when the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. So I would rephrase that and say, when the winds of change blow, build wonky windmills. Because even wonky windmills will turn in the wind and produce something. And the other thing I've included, the seed stitch, well, that's seeds of hope, isn't it? So the seeds of hope are blowing in the wind. And also, as Dylan said, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. So I hope you like that. I hope you enjoyed that three-dimensional block. There'll be more of them in the future, because it's something I used to do a lot of when I used to work by sewing machine. And I think they translate well into wonky hand stitching. And I'm nearly to the end. One more. And that'll do pig. And, you know, trying to stay positive. And trying to stay hopeful. And meanwhile making a wonky windmill. And I'm just loving that corduroy button. That corduroy button, I don't know, there's just something about it that gives me such joy. So there's my wonky windmill. I hope you have fun making your own wonky windmills. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Put that down to wave at you. Bye bye.